There's someone in your life right now who hasn't posted in months, maybe years. They're not gone. They're watching, reading, feeling everything, but sharing nothing. And the question that eats at people is simple. Why? In a world where silence feels suspicious, what does it mean to choose it? We live in an era where existence itself seems to require proof. Birthdays need photos. Coffee needs a caption. Even grief gets filtered and posted. But some people refuse to play that game. They scroll, they observe, they feel deeply, but they never post. And here's what most people get wrong. They assume these people are shy, broken, forgotten. But science tells a completely different story. Psychologists have found that people who rarely post on social media often score significantly higher in self-restraint, emotional independence, and introspective depth. They're not less connected to life. They're more connected, just inward instead of outward. Let's be brutally honest for a second. Most of what we post isn't communication, it's performance. Every caption, every photo, every carefully chosen song on a reel is an unconscious audition for approval, for belonging, for the feeling that our life looks good from the outside. And here's where it gets dark. Research shows that the more we post, the more we begin to think in posts. We stop experiencing life and start framing it. That sunset becomes content before it becomes a memory. That meal becomes a photo before it becomes a taste. But the person who doesn't post, they're just there, fully inside the moment. Not performing it, not packaging it, living it. Here's something your phone doesn't want you to know. Every time you post something and it gets likes, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical triggered by gambling, sugar, and certain drugs. Over time, your brain stops distinguishing between real experiences and validated experiences. You start craving the reaction more than the moment itself. Now imagine someone who consciously steps outside that loop, who refuses to feed the cycle. That's not passivity. That's one of the most disciplined things a human being can do in the modern world. Neuroscientists call this reward resistance. The ability to derive satisfaction from within rather than from external stimulation. And people who don't post tend to have it in abundance. There's a concept in psychology called psychological ownership, the deep sense that something belongs entirely to you. A memory, a feeling, a moment. The second you post it, that ownership begins to dissolve. Your private moment becomes public property, open to likes or silence, to comments or judgment, to shares or misinterpretation. People who don't post are guarding something precious, the feeling that their life is their own. And in an age where algorithms profit from your personal moments, that's not antisocial, that's revolutionary. But not every quiet person is at peace. Some stay silent because they're afraid, and that's worth talking about. Psychologists have identified something called self-presentational anxiety, a constant low-level fear of being watched, judged, and found lacking. Social media amplifies this fear to an almost unbearable level. What if nobody likes it? What if it gets misread? What if I post and the silence is worse than not posting at all? So they retreat. Not because they don't want to connect, but because the cost of visibility feels too high. And here's the painful paradox. The people most afraid to be seen online are often the ones with the most profound things to say. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's overflow. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that doesn't have a name yet. But millions of people have felt it. It's the moment you're sitting somewhere beautiful, and instead of feeling the beauty, You're thinking about the angle, the caption, the hashtags, and then you post it, and you watch the numbers. And when they disappoint you, the moment feels retroactively ruined. That's when something breaks. Many people who don't post today were once prolific sharers. Until one day, quietly, without announcement, they just stopped. No farewell post, no explanation. Just a slow disappearance from the feed. Because they realized they weren't living anymore. They were producing content out of their own life. Here's a thought that might sit uncomfortably with you. What if the people who don't post are the freest people online? They've opted out of the comparison economy. They don't measure their vacation against someone else's. They don't feel the pressure to outdo their last post. They don't lie awake wondering why a photo underperformed. Studies show that people who take extended breaks from social media posting experience measurable increases in emotional stability, sleep quality, and overall life satisfaction. Their sense of self becomes solid, not because people approved of them, but because they stopped needing approval to feel real. That's not withdrawal, that's liberation. People who don't post have figured out something quietly profound. Not everything that happens to you is meant to be witnessed. The conversations that change you happen at 2 a.m. without a camera. The grief that shapes you doesn't fit in a caption. The growth that defines you is too raw, too messy, too real for a highlight reel. And when you've lived through enough of those private transformations, you stop needing an audience for your existence. You start finding meaning in things that can't trend. Presence, depth, truth. Here's what's almost poetic about this. The people who live most quietly often feel life most intensely. They notice the way afternoon light shifts on a wall, the pause before someone laughs, the weight of an unspoken moment between two people. They are present. And presence is the rarest currency in a world engineered to steal your attention. And ironically, these are the most interesting people you'll ever meet. If you get close enough, because they save their stories for real conversations, not comment sections, for eye contact, not DMs, for moments that don't need witnesses. So the next time you see someone who never posts, don't assume they're hiding. Maybe they're just living. Maybe they've found something the rest of us keep scrolling past. The radical, quiet, countercultural idea that your life doesn't need to be seen to be meaningful. That growth doesn't require an audience. That peace doesn't need proof. That some of the most powerful things about you exist in the spaces between your posts, or in the beautiful, brave decision to never post at all. Because in the end, we were never meant to be content. We were meant to be human. And sometimes, the most human thing you can do is stay silent.